In recovery, I've learned that creativity doesn't come from perfection. It doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from simply showing up day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year, even at times when I don't feel like it. Today, I'm going to break that down a little bit. I'm going to discuss a few points, things that have been helpful for me, including like the small daily wins that I try and bring into my own creative and recovery practices. And then talk about why consistency over time is way more important than daily perfection, and also why this idea of being perfect can hold us back quite a lot. And then thirdly, talk about how showing up generally in life, not only as an artist or someone in recovery, builds trust with ourselves, and it allows us to be truer to ourselves as artists and creative people in recovery. So let's get going. The small wins, in my experience as an artist in recovery, I have to have a structure and a routine in place, otherwise things go pear-shaped very quickly. If I am left to my own devices, then I quickly fall off like any kind of rails that I've been on, and my life very soon gets messy. In a previous life, as someone who was drinking and using drugs all the time, that would have manifested itself in the use of those drinks and those drugs to change the way that I felt. But these days in recovery, the ways that my life can become derailed if I'm not careful are using my phone too much, isolating myself. Screen time generally is a big one. It's a massive issue in today's society. And so some things that I've found really useful for getting my day started correctly would be limiting screen time first thing in the morning, 100%. If possible, I try and not use my phone for at least the first hour. I'm not perfect, by the way. This is the point of the video, showing up and giving it a go matters more than being perfect. So I don't do it every day, that's the truth. And I try not to beat myself up if I don't do it every day either. For me, being in recovery as an artist is not just about the creativity, it's about the connection with other people in recovery, and also it's about the way that I choose to live my life generally. So early nights are really important for me, eating well is really important for me, screen-free time, which I've mentioned, and this morning routine, which does change, it usually involves a little bit of silence and intention setting. That might be a meditation or what a lot of people call prayer as well, And I don't like to just think of prayer in a religious context. I think prayer for me is just setting my intentions, checking in with like whatever it is that's greater than me, because, top secret, we aren't the center of the universe. And when we start to realize that, things do get better anyway. And, just generally having this structure in place. Exercise is massive too. For me, being an artist in recovery is a holistic practice. It's a total journey into learning more about yourself. And I think like all the things I've mentioned about getting good sleep, eating well, exercising, screen-free time, these are not unusual things to recommend. And the hard thing is just practicing them consistently. Which brings me nicely onto the second point, which is, for me, like consistency over time matters way more than daily perfection. The thing I want to talk about with perfection, right, is as creative people in recovery, being a perfectionist is actually, it's a double-edged sword. It is good on the one hand, but it's also really damaging on the other hand. And if we're not focusing on the right kind of perfection, then we can do ourselves more harm than good. And so, for me, striving after this perfection, this idea of perfection created a lot of anxiety for me, and the need for everything to be absolutely perfect and to follow this like really smooth plan every day actually created a lot of anxiety for me, and it made me less likely to achieve those goals that I'd set for myself. And so perfection is a funny one in that I think the bigger picture idea of perfection is that we're not striving for perfection, we're striving for consistency over time. And actually, showing up consistently over time is a form of perfection in and of itself. You know, we are perfecting the idea that we don't need to be perfect every day. I don't know if that really makes sense logically or philosophically if we were really to get down into the nitty-gritty of it, but as a framework for thinking about my daily routine, it really does help me a lot, you know. And so, like I said, my daily routine is not perfect every morning. I'm not perfect every day, Monday to Sunday. I'm back again on Monday, you know. I have days where things are up, I have days where things are down, days where I'm really in the moment and days when I'm just not in it at all. But the thing is, right, that consistency over time matters more than daily perfection, which is what I've already said. And it really needs hammering home, because as an artist in recovery, if I hadn't been consistent over the last 5.5 years with my own recovery and with the work that I've put into it, then I wouldn't be sat here today in this lovely art studio making YouTube videos and talking to, you know, a potential audience. And the same thing applies to my own creative practice. As an oil painter, if I hadn't been consistent in learning how to paint, learning how to draw, learning how to figure things out for myself and researching things in books or on YouTube even, or Patreon, whatever it might be, then again, I wouldn't be sat here right now making these videos in this lovely art studio. And so that's it. That is it. You know, the consistency is the only thing that matters. Showing up matters way more than perfection. We are not perfect creatures. We're not going to be perfect every day. The days when things go perfectly should be relished and should be really savoured, because they're few and far between. Those like perfect days, they come and they go, and they're really out of our control. In fact, what we can instead be in control of is the consistency and just turning up. And, you know, some days I feel like all I can give is 20%. But if I give 20%, then really I've given 100% of my capacity for that day, you know, so I've succeeded. And on the worst days, like, I just drag myself out of bed, and that's about as good as it gets. But, you know, I'm still, depending on how like high or low my mood is, I'm still sticking to that consistency of making positive change, even if I'm unable to do everything on my to-do list or whatever it might be. And so if we do start to build these habits, showing up builds trust with ourselves, and we learn to be comfortable in our own habits, and we learn to be comfortable with the idea that, yeah, not every day is perfect, but that's okay. You know, we're in recovery, we are creative, we have this like weird, you know, Venn diagram where both of those things cross over, and we're sat lovely in the middle, wondering, yeah, how we've managed these things. Because my experience being creative is difficult. It's not an easy way of life, and also being in recovery presents its own challenges, presents its own difficulties that we've got to get on top of. And so a takeaway for today would be that progress in recovery and progress in creativity is not about flawless routines. It's not about 100% every day. It's really about returning again and again to these little practices that keep us grounded, that keep us consistent, that keep us plugged into our bigger goals, you know, whether that's life goals, work goals, spiritual goals. And yeah, you know, it's really, really important to be consistent instead of striving for perfection. Don't let the anxiety of striving for perfection stop you from doing what you want to do. So that's about it for today, as per usual. If you have enjoyed what I've said, leave me a comment. I really love the comments. I think they're my favourite thing to read. And I love connecting with people, which is, you know, why I've started this online community on school called Creating Sobriety, which I'm going to continue banging on about. I spoke about that Venn diagram before, you know, where creativity and recovery and sobriety and alcohol and drug-free living cross. That's what I'm making now for everybody, is this community. It is the place for, you know, connecting with other creative people who struggle with addiction. And so if you're interested, it's linked in the description below. Yeah, if you found it useful, give it a subscribe. This is kind of the flow that I'm in at the moment, and I'm really enjoying making these videos, and I'm super grateful to be here. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep showing up, you know, not always perfectly, but at least I'm giving it a good go. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.